Hello?
Yeah. What's up? I said, what's going on?
Oh, I couldn't hear you, my bad.
Hmm.
So the panel asks, why am I not a Christian?
Yes.
Well, because I'm a Muslim. That's kind of obvious.
Okay. Why are you Muslim?
Because I believe in the prophet of the prophecy of Muhammad.
Why? Is there evidence to
Because I'm
support?
Muslim.
Oh, are you
I'm just
joking?
rage
Yeah,
baiting.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm rage baiting, man.
yeah. Okay. What's
Although I
up?
really am a believer.
You say you really are a believer?
Yeah, just
Okay.
the part with like why I'm a Muslim, that was kind of rage bait.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Do you have any questions, or you just rage baiting?
I do actually have some questions. Hold on.
Okay.
Let me get my iPad real quick.
Okay. I need water, and my fiance is not here. I guess I'll just die.
Yeah, bro. So I have some questions.
Hmm.
And by the way, if you're like something weird in the background, it's my retarded cousin. Yeah. So ignore that. So I have a few
I don't
questions,
think you can
which
actually
is
say that word up here, man. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm gonna
I
see if you
can.
get a strike. I don't think you can. I'm gonna see if you get a strike, but I don't think you can say that word up here. But go ahead.
Oh shit. Fuck. Okay. Okay.
But don't
So
don't spam the word
why
other
was that?
words too. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, just my cousin. He's like kind of annoying me and like trying to make me laugh.
Okay.
That's why I called him the R word.
Okay. All right.
But anyways, my first question is, why was Adam and Eve punished even though they didn't know the difference between good and evil?
Yeah. So the it's not that they don't know the difference between good and evil, but the way in which you're supposed to uh, obtain that knowledge was by the contemplation of God, was by pretty much seeking out God and likening yourself unto God, because God is that which is good. So they try to obtain this knowledge outside of God, pretty much, or outside of God's commands. And therefore, the consequences of that is that they neglect the tree of life. If you neglect life, you embrace death. So it's just the consequence of it. It's not that they didn't know what was wrong, because they got the command not to do a said thing. And they knew that what they did was wrong, which is why they tried to hide themselves. But the consequence of neglecting life is embracing death, which is pretty much just the consequence of their actions, but God saves them from their actions.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're basically saying that if you like look into the text, it obviously says they didn't know the difference between good and evil, and you're
It doesn't say
saying
that.
they had this. Does that is that not in Genesis?
That they didn't know the difference between good and evil.
Well, it does say that after they would eat the fruit, then they would learn like the difference. Does it not say that?
Yeah, and it says that they would be like God, which is a lie.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Let me get the quote real quick.
Hmm. Damn, damn, damn. There's a crazy interpretation that I just pieced together. I'm not gonna lie. There's a crazy interpretation.
Okay, so I think I found the quote. It's Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, where it says in the NIV translation, "For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Like it's implying that before that instance, they would not know the difference between good and evil.
Yeah. Uh, so, and this is exactly what I'm trying to explain is that when God creates them in Genesis chapter 1, he creates them to liken themselves unto the good. So, what the devil is doing is saying that, hey, you can be like God without actually choosing God and following him and likening yourself unto him. So the goal is that we become united unto God and we liken ourselves unto God, that we are able to like participate in his divine nature. And the devil is saying, you don't need to do all of that. You can just have it your way, like Burger King. So he's lying to them, right? And then when you go on to, so it's not that one is not that they didn't know what good and evil was. Um, that's not the case because they knew God. And then but you see that she falls to like all these sins. She falls to pleasure, she falls to pride, she falls to curiosity, or she falls to these things which lead to sin. And then in Genesis 3:22, what some of the church fathers say in regards to Genesis 3:22 is that um, God is like speaking sarcastically in a sense that, oh look, they became like us, like not, but they're going to die. So like it's pretty much just revealing that, oh, what the devil had promised them obviously was false. They don't eat from the tree and become like God. Rather, they end up dying. So like that's the purpose of Genesis 3:22. But it's not that they didn't know what good and evil was. It's that they were trying to be like God, knowing everything and stuff like that, um, outside of God.
Okay, I think this kind of like answers the question in some sense, but could I ask another question which might seem unrelated, but I'll show you the relevance like between it. Is
Okay.
that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, are you first of all are you Eastern Orthodox because this really like matters about this question?
I am not Eastern Orthodox.
Which denomination do you
Right
hold to?
now I am Protestant, but you could present the thing, and I could try to articulate a Eastern Orthodox perspective if you want me to.
Yeah, like it could also be Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, or Oriental Orthodox. Like it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Um, so my question is, I heard this quote from an Eastern Orthodox person called Georgios on TikTok, and he basically said that if someone is sinless, it would mean that they have no desire to sin. Bro, you good?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I'm listening.
Oh,
I was
because
trying
you
to
looked
lock in.
down.
Yeah, no, I was trying to lock in to make sure I'm following everything that you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So he basically said that if you don't have like the inclination or to want to sin, then like you're sinless. And being sinless means you don't have the desire to sin.
Okay.
And Catholics, and I believe Eastern Orthodox and Oriental Orthodox, hold to the position that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was sinless. So when if sinless means that she doesn't have the desire to sin, then really what differentiates her from a robot? Because God, how I see it is, a robot does what he is commanded, like programmed to do. And if Mary isn't capable of sinning, then what's really like the difference? Does she even have free will at that point?
Yeah.
Like, do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah. So free will. So I think the best way to answer it is to start from backwards. Free will is the capacity to choose the good. So there's, and this is what Saint Leo the Great says, is that there's three ways, or like temptation is in three stages, and it's through suggestion, desire, and delight and consent. So if you never like delight in temptation or desire to sin, then yeah, you can be said to be sinless. But it just means that you desire the things of God rather than the things of the flesh, which is what we're all trying to strive for. So it doesn't make you a robot, but it means that you've used your free will correctly in aligning yourself with the good to that which you desire is that which is good. Sin is going to be bad. You do not desire the bad, and because you've actually devoted yourself to Christ and you've contemplated Christ, you're able to see sin for what it is, which is bad, so you don't desire it anymore. And it doesn't make you a robot, but I choose the things that which is good, not the things that are bad.
Okay, so here's like my issue with this type of like answer. So I did ask this a person, and he basically made a similar response. He gave the example of Adam and Eve, and that's why I said like this is kind of relevant. He said Adam and Eve at one point were sinless, but they started sinning. But the thing is, I read Saint Augustine's Book of Confessions because my uncle gave me it as a gift, and in his first book, he basically makes many points, but one of the points he makes is that babies, for example, they aren't sinless. They don't do the act of sin itself, but the reason they don't do the act of sin itself is not because they're sinless in their nature, but because they aren't capable of sinning. Like, for example, if a baby was 200 pounds, huge, then it probably murder people. Like, it's not in its nature sinless. It's just not capable of committing sin. And this is like related because if someone believes, like Catholics, for example, believe that she was born without sin, that she lived her entire life without sin, then that causes like is an issue to for someone to want to sin. He first needs a desire, and Adam and Eve, since they like, it's kind of complicated to explain, man. Also, my
Yeah, like
English is
so them this desire to sin creeps into Adam and Eve because of the temptation of the serpent. So they weren't like they haven't completed their work of contemplating God and understanding that which is good all the way and the way in which they should. So the serpent was able to creep in through temptation and stir them off of their path. Right? So that's the thing in regards to Adam and Eve. Now, in regards to Mary, what the tradition would state is that she did contemplate God and chose the things of God and aligned her will with God so that the desire of sin was not there. Now, from the Catholic perspective, Mary is also without like original sin. So the inclination to sin or the stain of sin is also not on Mary as well. But Mary aligning herself with Christ or with God so much to the point that she does not desire the things of the flesh is not Mary revoking her free will or anything like that. It's just doing what humans are supposed to do, which is align ourselves with Christ to where we don't desire the things of the devil.
yeah. So you said she's sinless because she rejected sin. But again, this like goes back to the question: a baby, for example, Saint Augustine writes in his book that a baby, when it looks at another child, and he sees that it's, for example, being nurtured or fed, in this baby's soul or mind, whatever, it's it's like it has jealousy, like it's enraged. So he's sinful by nature. I would say Mary like has the capacity to sin because she's human, but when you say she never wanted to sin, well, again, you first need to have the desire to sin so you can reject it. But if the Eastern Orthodox brother Georgios, what he said was true, which means that when you're sinless, you don't have the desire to sin at all, then how in the world could she reject something which she doesn't even have an inclination
Oh, I think
to?
I see what you're saying. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you would just reject. You could still reject something without having the inclination through suggestion. So um, like when God rejects certain things, like the bad praise or the when the Israelites try to tempt him, he's rejecting this through temptation, right? They're trying to get him to act out of character, and he rejects that thing through suggestion. But it's not through desire, delight, or consent in which he's rejecting said thing. And the same with Christ. Are you Christian?
No, I'm Muslim.
No, like for real, for real. Are you Christian or no?
No, I swear I'm not.
Okay, so in regards to Christ, right? Christ is able to reject sin, although he never has the desire to sin, because sin is offered to him through suggestion. Like when the devil tries to get Christ to sin against God or to go against God, he is suggesting these things. So he's able to reject it, although he never desires. So if you are like Muslim, right, and you're a devout Muslim, say for instance, you would never accept pork. Rumi just came in too, so he could probably explain it too. But like you don't desire pork. Now I can tempt you or offer you pork, right? And say, hey, take this pork, take this pork. I'm literally offering you sin. Now you can deny this and reject it without ever having the desire to eat the pork, right? So you're denying these things, but you do not have the desire to sin. You're rejecting these things, but you do not have the desire to sin. So you can be sinless without having the desire to sin. Like you still have a will, you have free choice, but you do not desire the things that are opposed to God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the thing is, sort of yes, but there's still like some confusion for me.
Okay.
Like in the Bible, for example, let's take the example of the biblical God. In the Old Testament, often it says that like the Israelites or like other humans tempted God, but it was all futile because it's an external temptation, not an internal. Like, and same thing with Mary. I would grant that Mary was externally tempted. Like, for example, if you like gave a Muslim like pork, said like come eat it, that's external temptation,
Yeah.
but it's not internal temptation.
Yeah.
If Mary is like born without sin, maybe, or like she really doesn't have the desire to, then she doesn't have any internal temptation. And at that point, can you even call it temptation? Because it's not like real temptation. It's not going to convince somebody. So
No, yeah, you
like
could still.
it's kind of confusing.
Well, at least under the Christian paradigm, what temptation is it comes in three stages. You can call each one of the stages or whatever stage temptation, right? So suggestion is temptation. Now, if that person never feels inwardly tempted, as in they don't take delight nor consent to the temptation, it doesn't mean that they weren't tempted because it was suggested to them. So I'll just pull it up again, bro. So if you go to is it Mark chapter 1? Let me see. I'll show my screen so y'all can see what I'm doing. Okay, so Saint Gregory the Great, right? He says, temptation is brought to fulfillment by these three stages: suggestion, delight, consent. We in temptation generally fall through delights and then through consent. Before the begotten, for being begotten of the sin of the flesh, we bear within us that through which we suffer conflict. But God incarnate in the womb of a virgin came into the world without sin, so he suffers no conflict within himself. He could therefore be tempted by suggestion, but the delight of sin could never touch his mind. So all these temptations from the devil were from without, not from within him. So even the temptations that come from outside can still be characterized as temptation, yet it does not mean or entail that he has this internal conflict. Neither does it entail the same for Mary, that I have this internal conflict, or she has this internal conflict with herself in regards to falling to sin or temptation. So this is the way that temptation is understood in the Christian paradigm.
Yeah, so I would say that I could grant and I would agree with, like, if someone said that Mary was externally tempted and not inwardly, that kind of makes sense. But one thing which, like, really, like, throws this under the bus is, like, immaculate conception and, like, no hate towards Catholic or the Catholic Church, but I don't understand that point. And following that, there's the reason why I also said this is irrelevant to Adam and Eve. And another thing is, if Mary is born without internal temptation, right? Then, first of all, how is this fair? How is a fair God creating someone with the capacity or like the ability to not feel desire to sin? Like she's being tempted, okay, but she doesn't really have this desire. And secondly, if we said, for example, Adam and Eve, since they didn't have what's it called again in Christianity, like to be born with the ability to sin. What's it called?
Original sin.
Yeah, exactly. Since Adam and Eve didn't have original sin, since they were the first humans, by that logic, could you not like say that? Okay, is it really Eve's fault if she was only externally tempted, not and not inwardly? Because at that point, like for example, when I think of something and it's sinful, okay, that's inward temptation. I think of it myself. But if Eve or Adam didn't have any internal temptation, but they were externally tempted by something else, then how did they like?
How did they fall?
How did they come into sin? Like, do
Yeah.
you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, I do. Fantastic questions. Um, so,
Thank you.
all right. In regards to your first question, right? About how is it fair? That's what you asked. How is it fair? So, it's fair because, especially from the Catholic perspective, in regards to Immaculate Conception, it's fair because the way in which the world is going to be saved from said sin is going to be through the incarnation that comes to Mary. And for the righteousness of God to be brought into the earth, he needs a clean vessel. So God prepares that vessel, namely in Mary, to bring about the salvation to the rest of the world. So that's the reason as to why it would be fair. Now, in regards to Adam and Eve, so you actually see in Genesis chapter 3 that there is an internal temptation for Adam and Eve. So God, and this is what's actually said in regards to, from Orthodox traditions and Catholic traditions, is that God protected Mary. Hold on, my fiance just commented. I don't know what she's trying to say, but God like protected Mary. But in regards to Adam and Eve, here I actually pull it up on the screen.
Also, the reason why I'm asking this is because like Sam Shamoon.
Yes.
Yeah, I asked him this question, and like his first answer was that he doesn't believe God created, like God's creation at the beginning was had like the desire to sin. He would like his argument was then we would need to say that God purposefully created something to sin, which he doesn't believe. And yeah, he then started like insulting my mother and stuff for some reason. But that aside,
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah,
So that answer was kind of
um, yeah. So you actually see this internal temptation. So with Adam and Eve, he doesn't create them with the desire to sin. That is correct. He creates them to. We'll go back to Genesis 1:26, right? He creates them to liken themselves unto God, right? To be made after God's likeness. So they pretty much they're having this relationship with God. They're contemplating God's goodness, and then they are likening themselves unto God. That's what he creates them for. So they aren't created with this inherent desire to sin. Now, what you see is that they stop their contemplation of God, and they question what they know about about God because of the deception of the serpent. When he makes the woman question what God said, right? Where he says, "Did God actually say, 'You shall not eat of any tree in the garden'?" That's not what God said, right? So the woman said, "No, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, 'You shall not have the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.'" God never said this last part. God never said that. She adds that on, which gives the devil an opening for temptation. But the serpent said, "You will not surely die," right? And then what you see here, and this is what St. Augustine says, I believe in his Confessions, but I could get you the exact quote, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desired to make one wise, right? Then she took the fruit. So she falls to pride, to pleasure. Obviously, she falls to temptation through delight and consent. So the suggestion is made. That's the outward temptation. The inward working of the temptation takes place due to the fact that she stops the contemplation of the Lord. She questions the word of God, which allows her to fall. So they were made to liken themselves unto God, but she stops said contemplation, which enables her to be able to fall. And she falls through the things which St. Augustine talks about right here. So St. Augustine said, when the Lord had been tempted with this triple temptation, because in all the allurements of the world, these three are to be found, either pleasure, curiosity, or pride. So in most temptation, what you're going to see is either pleasure, curiosity, or pride. And that's what the woman undergoes. She saw that it was good for food, pleasure, that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desired to make one wise. So she became curious, and the pride of life, that she's sitting here, she's trying to be wise outside of God. That's pride. So she falls to those temptations, which is why Jesus like pretty much undoes what she does when he's tempted in the wilderness. But it's not that God created them. My fault, but it's not that God created them to sin, but she was able to fall because they didn't liken themselves unto God. They weren't done doing what they were created to do.
Okay, okay. Uh, this answer kind of gave me a better basis or like grounding of understanding. Yeah. So, by the way, can I ask more questions or
Yeah,
like?
yeah.
Yeah. So I have some theological questions or like metaphysical.
Okay.
My second question is in Christianity, obviously, the idea or like the idea that Jesus is begotten by the Father, that the Son is begotten by the Father, and that the Holy Spirit is begotten by the Father. What I really don't understand is what is the difference between causation and begottenness? Because, for example, you wouldn't say that the atoms that God created were generated or begotten by Him, but you would use this term with when it comes to the Son. So, what's the difference between like causation and begottenness?
See, these are fantastic questions. All right, um, so the difference between causation, um, one, especially in like in church tradition, it will fall under like the Aristotelian causes, which we would say that begottenness does not do. So causation would imply going from like not existing or a generation of existence. So going from not existing to existing. That's or changing the existence of said thing. That's what would be implied or entailed by causation. That's not what's in reference to begottenness, especially in regards to God. So in regards to God, there's not a causation in that sense where a being goes from either not existing to existing or a change in existence. But it is that which always is and is generated through the act, through the one act of God, either the act of the intellect or the act of the will. So it's not a change in existence, which would be the I guess the symmetry breaker.
Okay, so for example, the analogy like, oh, bro, I can wait. You can like,
Go get some water.
yeah,
Go get some water. Hold on one
take
second.
your time.
I don't know where my friend Abrahamos is, but I would love if he would join me in these questions. Because you're asking such fantastic questions. But go ahead.
Yeah, so like a few months ago, I couldn't understand the begottenness thing. Like, how can something be begotten? But I think I have this analogy now in my brain.
Okay.
And I'm not saying this analogy is perfect, but for example, could you say that God the Father is a battery and the Son is a light bulb, and the Father eternally generates or gives energy or power to like the light bulb for its like to
I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't use that because the light bulb is really, really different from the battery, in a sense, like ontologically different. But you can use a kind of analogy like the sun, that always, like, what the sun is that it generates light and heat, but the light is not the plasma, and the plasma is not the heat. But these two things both come forth from the plasma, but there's only one sun. So, like, if the sun was eternal, it would always be generating light and heat from the plasma, right? That would be eternal.
Oh, isn't this like similar to Saint Augustine's analogy with the fire? How fire generates light and heat.
Yeah.
So, like in this analogy, and obviously, like I'm not very nitpicky, but like I don't like try to force analogies which are perfect. But to use the analogy that God, the Father, is the fire itself, and He generates light and heat necessarily. Is that like a suitable?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's pretty much the point. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, sorry, go on.
No, no, go ahead.
So, if I'm not mistaken, are you like trying to say that um, begottenness would refer that eternally, that there's no point in time where something is generated or like made into existence, but causation implies that at one point in time it didn't exist and it came into existence. Is that like?
Yeah, or its existence changed. Yeah, can you text me?
No. Okay, okay, I see. Um, my third question is.
Give me a sec. Somebody's asking really good questions. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, somebody was asking about what?
No, no, I was telling my fiance that somebody's on live asking really good questions. So just give me a sec.
That bro, if you want, we could talk
No,
like the
no,
next week.
no. I want to continue the conversation.
Ah, okay, I appreciate it, man.
All right, what's up?
So one thing which I still which kind of confuses me is the like idea of Jesus being God. Okay, so your friend joined, right?
Yeah, yeah. He's way better than me. He's amazing. Um, but yeah, go ahead.
You're good too, man.
Okay.
So yeah, so if Jesus is God, right? I wouldn't deny that from the Bible itself, it claims that He is God. It's just obviously that I don't accept it.
Mm-hmm.
But like a human is someone who's limited. For example, me and you, we have limited knowledge. That's one of our like properties or like attributes of us. Like we don't have infinite strength. We don't have infinite wisdom. But the second when something has these attributes, like the second when someone is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, then he is God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can God, who's omnipotent, which means like he's infinite in power, omniscient means he knows everything or like his knowledge is infinite, how can he limit himself and become a human when the very definition of a human is someone who's limited?
Mm-hmm.
And like how can and I could grant the idea that okay, God limited himself, like he took on this form from the Christian standpoint, obviously not from the Islamic one, but from the Christian standpoint, that he's now fully human. But what confuses me is to say that he's fully God and fully human, because that's like saying like he's fully everything and fully nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah. So in regards to that, we don't say so. We will affirm that Christ has two natures. Obviously, especially if you're reading Augustine, you'll see that. We'll affirm that Christ has two natures. So, if we were to say that the divine nature is all powerful or not all powerful, like that would be the contradiction. But we're saying that Christ, the divine person, creates the flesh and then subsists in that flesh without changing the divine nature, pretty much. So the divine nature stays all powerful, and he sustains. He also creates this flesh and sustains that flesh, and subsists in that flesh as well. But that the human nature is really distinct from the divine nature. So you can say things about Christ that is proper to the human nature, and then you can say things about Christ that are proper to the divine nature. So we would say that Christ is all knowing, proper to the divine nature. We would say that Christ hungers, proper to the human nature. Right? We're going to clarify what we mean when we're talking about Christ. But we're not predicating both of these things, like the Christ is flesh and Christ is not flesh. We're not predicating those things to the same nature. So it won't be, that wouldn't be a contradiction, because we're not negating the proposition that Christ is not flesh, in a similar sense of how, like, I can say that you are immaterial and you are material. But I'm saying that you're immaterial insofar as your soul is immaterial. And I'm saying you're material insofar as your flesh is material. So you're not a contradiction, because I'm talking about you in two different respects. So you do the same with Christ pretty much, but he has two really distinct natures.
Okay, two following questions with that. So, like I said, my uncle gifted me Saint Augustine's Book of Confessions, and hold on, let me go to newadvent.org. Okay, Augustine of Hippo. So, in the first book, or in the second, I'm not sure, he basically talks about how could creation itself like contain God, or would God be like outside of creation? And he basically like talks a lot about that. Hold on, should I get like the quote real quick?
Yeah, I have it up. If you could pull the chapter.
Yeah, hold on.
Hey, if you're busy, it's okay. But if you're not, he's asking really good questions. I think you would have enjoyed.
How loud is it?
Uh, it's like I can hear you. It's not too loud.
Okay, I think I got the chapter.
Okay.
It's I think chapter 3 or chapter 4.
Book one.
Yes.
Okay. What does it say?
Oh, hold on. No, it's chapter 2 to chapter 3, I think.
Okay. Um. Okay. How can I how shall I call upon my God, my Lord? Since for when I call him, I shall be calling him to myself. And what room is there within me where the God can come into me? Okay, so what exactly? Because he's asking a whole bunch of questions here.
Yeah, so hold on. Like, the new advent.org has like a different translation. Like,
Oh,
should I read the main parts? Like, is that
you
okay?
can go to. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is chapter 2, and the title is That the God whom we invoke is in us, and we in him. So he says, And how shall I call upon my God, and my Lord? For when I call on him, I ask him to come into me. And what place is there in me into which my God can come, into which God can come, even he who made heaven and earth? Is there anything in me, O Lord my God, that can contain you? Do indeed the very heaven and the earth which you have made, and in which you have made me, contain you? Or as nothing could exist without you, does whatever exists contain you? For why then do I ask you to come into me, since I indeed exist and could not exist if you were not in me, because I am not yet in hell, though you are even there. For if I go down into hell, you are there. He's quoting the Bible verse. And then he says, I could not therefore exist, could not exist at all, O my God, unless you were in me. or should I not rather say that I could not exist unless I were in you, from whom are all things? Well, whom all are all things, bro? This a lot of.
Yeah, by whom are all things, in whom are all things. Even so, Lord, even so, where do I call you, since you are in me? Or whence can you come into me? For where outside heaven and earth can I go, that from thence my God may come into me, who has said, I fill heaven and earth?
Yeah, and chapter 3, like, basically is a bit more specific, I think. Like, should I read it or you?
I mean, I could read it. Since
Okay.
then you fill heaven and earth. Do they contain you, or as they contain you not? Do you fill them, and yet there remains something over? And where do you pour forth that which remains of you when the heaven and earth are filled? Or indeed, is there no need that you who contain all things should be contained in any, since those things which you fill by containing them? For the vessels which you fill do not sustain you, since they should even be broken by you, will not be poured forth. And when you are poured forth on us, like in Acts 2:18, you are not cast down, but we are uplifted. Nor are you dispersed. I don't know how to say it. Despeciated. I don't know. But we are drawn together. But as you fill all things, fill them.
Dissipated.
Dissipated. Thank you so much. But we are drawn together. But as you fill all things, fill them with your whole self, or as even all things cannot altogether contain you, do they contain a part, or do at all once contain the same part, or as each its own proper part, the greater more, the smaller less? Is then one part of you greater, another less, or is it that you my fault, hold on. Or is it that you who are wholly everywhere while nothing altogether contains you?
Yeah, by the way, when I got the book and started reading it, it was genuinely one of the most confusing and like complicated things I've ever read. I swear it took like my phone every 20 seconds to go into Google definitions. But anyway, his point his point is that if God the Almighty is like so great and so powerful, what like could even the heavens and the earth in their entirety contain him? Like, or are the heavens and earth in him? Like, he goes like through these questions,
Yeah.
and I think later in book one he says, "That's why I'm wondering. Maybe God doesn't reveal this, so I wonder and get closer to you." Which that's why I like Saint Augustine is like a very good thinker. But my question is, if even Saint Augustine can't imagine, like, how in the world could God Almighty, like, does he even exist in heavens and earth? For me, what I can't comprehend is how can this God be limited or like contain his existence into a human?
Hey, do you want to
Yeah,
answer?
so yeah, I can answer that. So if you read it, that first portion that we read, he talks about the fact that nothing can contain him, right? And so we agree
Exactly.
with that God cannot be contained. However, he also mentions the fact that if he, Saint Augustine himself, if he were not in God, or if God was not in him, rather, he would not exist, right? Because he's talking about God is in all things, in the specific sense that like the cause is in an effect, okay, and because God is the cause of all things that exist, he is in a sense in all things that exist. And that's why he says that without God being inside of something, it could not possibly exist. um so but again, God being inside of something doesn't mean that God is contained by that thing, right? Like if I put a glass inside the ocean is gonna fill my glass of water, but I'm not gonna have the whole ocean contained in my glass. And so in a similar way, we can say God is in all things that exist because he's sustaining all things, and yet God is not contained by any of these things. Rather, it's he who can.
He cut out, but yeah, do you get his answer?
Yeah, but one thing which I want to elaborate on is he said like he gave the example of a bucket and the ocean, I think,
Oh yeah, a cup in the
or
ocean.
maybe. Yeah, but the thing is, when you say fully God, for example, if I use the term fully apple, like I'm not, I'm, and if I gave you only the root or like a part of the apple, you wouldn't say that's fully an apple. You would like expect the entire apple. And if someone says he's fully man, okay, so he has all the attributes, all the common or essential properties of man, sure. But then you wouldn't. And if you say he's fully God, then I would expect he has all the essential and common properties of being God. But then again, like how can all like the Almighty God be contained? Because that's
Yeah.
essentially
So
what it is. If you're saying this human being contains like is fully God, isn't that saying God is contained in that human in his
no.
creation?
Okay. So oh well. I mean, Abe, do you want to talk?
However you want.
Oh, you got like a. It's all right because it sounds like you have like a roller coaster in the background.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, here I'll let you go. God bless you, bro.
Okay. Bye. God bless.
Um. Yeah. So I didn't know that he had stuff to do, but what's the name? So in regards to, I'm trying to think of your. Oh yeah. So in regards to the incarnation, right? When we say that Jesus is fully God, fully man, or truly God, truly man, that he has that which makes a human human, he has. So the human nature or a body that is composed of soul, he actually takes that on. He truly becomes human. But it doesn't change, alter, or mix with the divine nature. So he has the divine nature or is the divine nature that subsists within humanity. So it doesn't change that which is proper to the divine nature. So I don't know, not being material, being all powerful, that which is being all knowing, that which is proper to the divine nature, he has that. And then he creates this vessel, this flesh, and subsists within that flesh, which is really distinct from the divine nature. So you're not saying that the divine nature changed. So that which makes God God changed. No, that is not what we are saying. The divine nature never changes. The relation is going to be on the part of the human to the divine, not the divine to human. So the divine nature does not change to become man or anything like that. That's not what happens. He creates a vessel and then indwells within that vessel, as Augustine says that he indwells with everything. Obviously, if God didn't indwell there or wasn't in it, then it wouldn't be able to exist. He sustains the existence of the humanity and subsists within the humanity.
Oh, okay. Is it for example like when okay, and again this is a kind of a weird analogy, but could we like compare this kinda to when, for example, we have a father and a son, like two regular people, and you could say, oh, the son is just like the father, even though the attributes of the father are like much greater than like the attributes of this son. For example, you could say, oh, he has his eyes, even though the eyes of the father might be much bigger. Like, could you say the same thing about Jesus that okay, he has the same attributes, but they are just like lesser in some
Individual?
sense?
Nah. So uh, like just be like you could say it like that if you scope it. If like you zoom out and say that oh, the father has a son, everything that the father is in regards to his humanity, the son is. In the sense that the father is human, the son is human, right? So the father communicates his nature to his son. So they have the same nature. Now with God, this happens eternally and necessarily and internally, where it's not other than God. Um, what's the name? It's not other than God. So when the Father begets the Son, he's begetting and communicating that nature to the Son. So the Son is the same God as the Father. Now, in regards to the incarnation, you can kind of think of it, and this isn't the best analogy, obviously, but think of it like you ever played GTA or something?
Yeah.
Okay, so like when you create a player on GTA, like and you die in GTA, you could say things that are proper to your GTA character, like I died, or I was driving really fast. But it doesn't automatically mean one. It doesn't mean that your human nature changed. That oh, you're no longer human because you're controlling this this virtual person or whatever the case may be, right? This character that you created and now you subsist in a sense, and you control and you do acts that are particular to that specific nature of the GTA character. Like you would say that oh, there's two different natures. There's Rafari, the GTA character, and there's Rafari, the human. Um, it's the same one person, but we're talking about two different natures. So you could say Rafari died, not according to his human nature, right? But according to the GTA character, kind of like that, not really, but kind of like that. So you have two really distinct natures, and then you would speak proper to whichever nature you're talking about. But it doesn't mean that the divine nature changed, became less. The entire divine nature was contained, or things like that. It's not like that.
Yeah, of course I don't use, and I hate when people do this, but I don't use analogies like for the word for word, like or like the perfect example. I like to use analogies to try to understand the concept, like on some grounds,
Yeah.
and that's why, of course, like obviously I won't take this analogy word for word. Yeah. Hold on one second.
No problem. I wish I actually did stream on YouTube. This would have been a good live to go on YouTube. There's no God, huh? Okay.
Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Um, by the way, like I have so many questions, and obviously, like it's like very late where I live, and I'll probably go to bed in like maybe a few minutes. But like, could I come up anytime and like ask questions when you're live?
Absolutely, bro. Feel free to come back anytime. I'd love to have you, bro. Go ahead, get some rest, bro.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your answers and your help.
Yeah, no problem. God bless you.
God bless you too. Have a great day.